Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Podcast. I'm Sarah, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. If this is your first time tuning in, we're so glad you found us.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark, and today we have something truly exciting lined up for you. I know many of you listening today are working hard to improve your English, and you might have encountered a roadblock that's holding you back. Sound familiar?
I bet a lot of you feel like you need to memorize an entire dictionary just to sound fluent in English. But guess what? That's not the key to speaking English naturally or confidently.
That's right. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can actually speak English naturally without memorizing a ton of words or relying on perfect grammar. And we're going to show you how to start sounding confident without the pressure of memorizing every single detail.
Yes, Mark. So many learners feel overwhelmed by the idea of having to know everything before they start speaking. But let's be honest, no one speaks perfectly all the time. And the key to speaking English confidently and naturally is not about knowing every word in the dictionary.
Exactly. It's about using what you know in a way that makes you sound more natural. You don't need to memorize lists of vocabulary or worry about saying everything perfectly. Fluency doesn't come from perfection. It comes from practicing, speaking, and connecting with others.
And here's the thing. If you focus on learning how to speak naturally and communicate effectively, you'll notice a huge improvement in your English skills. You'll feel more comfortable, you'll stop worrying about mistakes, and most importantly, you'll start enjoying the process.
You see, when we learn English, we often get so caught up in trying to be perfect that we forget to actually speak. We get nervous about making mistakes, but in reality, mistakes are part of the process. They're the stepping stones to becoming a more confident speaker.
And you know what? It's totally okay to make mistakes. The best speakers, whether in English or any other language, are those who practice speaking without the fear of being perfect. They focus on using their knowledge in a real, practical way, and that's exactly what we're going to help you do today.
So, how do you speak English naturally without memorizing every word? We're going to give you simple, actionable tips that you can use right away. It's not about remembering every word. It's about using the words you know in real conversations, connecting with others, and focusing on the most important skills that lead to fluency, like listening, responding, and asking the right questions.
Exactly. We're going to teach you how to get comfortable with conversation by focusing on key phrases, expressions, and strategies that make you sound natural and confident. And we promise this isn't about memorizing long lists of vocabulary. It's about using what you already know in the right way.
So, are you tired of feeling stuck when it comes to speaking English? Maybe you've spent hours memorizing words, but still don't feel confident in a real conversation. Here's the truth. The secret to sounding natural and fluent is not about knowing every single word. It's about knowing how to use what you already know.
That's right. Imagine this. You could walk into any English conversation, feeling calm and confident, knowing you can use simple strategies to express yourself naturally. You don't have to have the perfect vocabulary. What matters most is how you use the words you know.
So today, we're going to show you how to do exactly that. How to sound more like a native speaker, even if you don't know every single word in the dictionary. Trust me, it's easier than you think, and we're going to guide you step by step.
But before we dive into the tips and tricks, we've got a small favor to ask. If you're ready to start speaking English with more confidence and without the stress of memorizing every word, hit that like button right now. It really helps us to keep creating content for you.
And don't forget to subscribe to English Podcasts so you can keep learning with us every week. We've got tons of helpful episodes lined up to guide you through your English learning journey.
Also, if you know someone who's struggling with speaking English and feels overwhelmed by memorizing words, share this episode with them. We want to help as many learners as possible to speak naturally and confidently.
All right. Are you ready to stop memorizing endless vocabulary lists and start speaking English with confidence, Sarah?
I'm absolutely ready, Mark. Let's dive in. All right, let's dive into some practical strategies that will help you speak English naturally and confidently without the stress of memorizing every word. This first section is all about focusing on what really matters, using what you already know effectively. So let's jump right in.
One of the biggest mistakes many English learners make is trying to memorize every single word they come across. But here's the thing, you don't need to know every word to speak naturally. What's more important is knowing key phrases and expressions that you can use in everyday conversations.
Exactly. So, instead of memorizing long lists of vocabulary, focus on learning phrases that native speakers use often. For example, common expressions like, "How's it going?" or "What's up?" are perfect for starting casual conversations. Or how about, "I don't understand," or "Could you repeat that?" These are phrases that will help you in almost any conversation.
Right. And don't just stop at one word. Learn how to combine words into natural phrases. For example, if you learn the word work, don't just memorize that single word. Learn how to say, "I'm going to work," or "I have to finish some work." By learning how to use words in context, you'll sound more like a native speaker and be able to communicate much more naturally.
Yes, Mark. It's all about chunking your language. Think of learning language chunks, groups of words that naturally go together, rather than individual words. For example, instead of memorizing just the word coffee, learn common phrases like, "I'd like a coffee," or "Let's grab a coffee." These are the kinds of phrases that will come in handy every day.
Here's something that might surprise you. It's okay to simplify your language. You don't need to use complex grammar or super fancy vocabulary to sound natural. In fact, the simpler you keep things, the more clear and natural you'll sound.
Absolutely. When we speak naturally in English, we often use short, simple sentences. Think about it. Native speakers don't usually speak like they're writing an essay. They use short, direct sentences to communicate their ideas. For example, instead of saying, "It would be greatly appreciated if you could please send me the report by tomorrow morning," just say, "Please send me the report by tomorrow."
Yes, and it doesn't mean you're not being polite. You can still be polite without complicating things. Instead of using long, formal phrases, just get to the point. It's much easier for you to speak and much easier for your listener to understand. Simplicity is key.
And if you don't know a word right away, don't worry about it. Just try to explain it with words you do know. For example, if you don't know how to say elevator, you can just say, "It's the thing that takes you up and down in a building." Even if it's not the perfect word, you're still making yourself understood. That's the goal, communicating, not perfection. Another way to speak more naturally is by listening a lot. I know, it sounds simple, but the more you listen to native speakers, the more you'll pick up on natural rhythms, phrases, and expressions. It's like learning the music of the language.
Exactly. Listening is so important because it helps you hear how things are said in real conversations. You can listen to podcasts, watch movies, or just pay attention to people talking around you. Native speakers often use contractions like "I'm" instead of "I am," or "gonna" instead of "going to." And it's important to get used to hearing these things.
And when you hear these contractions and informal ways of speaking, try to use them in your own conversations. Imitate how native speakers speak. You might feel awkward at first, but that's okay. It's all part of the learning process. Eventually, you'll begin to sound more natural.
The more you listen, the easier it becomes to pick up on the natural flow of the language. You'll start to recognize certain words and phrases that come up often. And then, when you're speaking, you'll naturally start using them yourself.
Next up, practice, practice, practice. To really speak naturally, you have to use English in real-life situations. Whether that's talking to friends, ordering food, or even chatting with strangers, the best way to improve is by actually speaking the language.
That's right. You don't have to wait until you're perfect. In fact, you'll never be perfect, and that's totally fine. What matters is that you speak and practice every day. Even if you make mistakes, you'll learn and get better with every conversation.
And it doesn't have to be stressful. Start small. Even simple conversations like, "How are you?" or "What did you do today?" are great practice. If you're too shy to speak to strangers, try practicing with a friend or a language partner online. You can also practice speaking by recording yourself and listening back to it. This is a great way to see where you can improve. Now, let's talk about pronunciation. Many learners worry a lot about speaking perfectly, but the truth is, it's more important to be understood than to be perfect.
Exactly. If you focus too much on being perfect, you'll only hold yourself back. It's much better to pronounce words clearly rather than worry about sounding exactly like a native speaker. For example, if you have an accent or pronounce something differently, that's totally fine. As long as you're easy to understand, that's what counts.
Yes, and if you're worried about your accent, here's a secret. Native speakers won't mind. They're more focused on what you're saying, not how you say it. So, don't stress over pronunciation too much. Just focus on clarity and being understood.
Now, here's a big one. Using fillers and pauses. Native speakers often use words like like, you know, or so in their conversations. These words help them fill in gaps and sound more natural while they're thinking of what to say next.
Yes! When you're speaking in English, don't feel the pressure to always be talking nonstop. It's okay to pause and think about what you're going to say. You can say things like, I mean, or well, to buy yourself a little time. The goal is to sound conversational, not robotic.
All right, so now let's talk about one of the biggest barriers to speaking English naturally, the fear of making mistakes. I can't stress this enough, mistakes are part of the process. In fact, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not challenging yourself enough.
Exactly. A lot of learners hold back because they're afraid of saying something wrong. But here's the thing. Native speakers make mistakes too. It's not about being perfect. It's about communicating. If you focus too much on being perfect, you'll freeze up every time you speak.
And the great thing about English is that most native speakers will understand you, even if you make a mistake. They're not going to judge you for mispronouncing a word or getting a little grammar wrong. The more you speak, the better you'll get, and you'll learn from your mistakes. Here's an example. Let's say you say, I'm going to the store now. I've went there yesterday. It's not perfect grammar, but guess what? A native speaker will still understand what you mean. Over time, as you keep practicing, you'll improve naturally. But don't let fear stop you from speaking.
Another key strategy is to use context to help you understand and practice new words. You don't need to memorize every word in the dictionary, but you do need to understand how words are used in different situations. Context is everything.
That's right. Let's say you hear the word bank in a conversation. Does it mean a financial institution, or is it talking about the side of a river? The context will tell you which meaning is correct. That's why it's important to listen to how native speakers use words in real conversations.
Exactly, Mark. When you encounter a new word, instead of memorizing the definition, pay attention to how it's used. If you hear a word in a movie, a podcast, or a conversation, try to guess its meaning based on the situation. You can also ask someone to explain it in simpler words. This way, you're learning how to use words in context, not just in isolation.
And here's a great tip. Once you've heard a word in context, try to use it yourself in a conversation. This is how you'll really start to remember new vocabulary by using it in a meaningful way.
Now, one of the most effective ways to speak English naturally is to practice with others. And I'm not talking about practicing with a textbook or flashcards. I'm talking about real conversations with real people.
That's right. You can find conversation partners online through language exchange websites or even by joining groups where English is spoken. The more you engage in conversations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
And don't worry if your conversations are short or simple at first. Start with basic topics, introductions, hobbies, daily routines, and build from there. As you practice more, you'll start feeling comfortable talking about more complex subjects.
And here's a tip. When you're having these conversations, focus less on making everything perfect and more on just communicating. You can worry about grammar and vocabulary later right now. The goal is just to practice speaking. You'll be surprised how much you learn just from having a chat with someone.
Speaking naturally isn't just about the words you use, it's also about how you say them. The intonation and rhythm of your speech are super important for sounding natural in English. Native speakers don't speak in a monotone voice. They use changes in pitch and rhythm to emphasize certain words or ideas.
Right, Sarah. Think about how you ask a question. In English, we often raise our pitch at the end of the sentence when asking yes/no questions. Are you coming? The rising intonation makes it clear that it's a question. If you don't use this natural rhythm, your sentence might sound flat or unnatural.
Exactly. And it's not just questions. Stress is also important in English. For example, in the sentence, I like chocolate, the word chocolate is stressed. If you said it as, I like chocolate, it wouldn't sound as natural. It's these small details that help you sound more fluent.
To improve your intonation and rhythm, try listening to native speakers and imitating how they speak. Watch movies, listen to podcasts, or even sing along to songs. This will help you get the hang of the natural flow of the language.
Now, let's talk about one of the most enjoyable ways to expand your vocabulary: reading and listening. When you read books, articles, or listen to podcasts, you're naturally exposing yourself to new words and phrases. The key here is to read and listen actively.
Yes, don't just read for the sake of reading. Pay attention to the context and the language that's being used. Highlight or take notes on words and phrases that are new or interesting. Then, try to use them in your conversations.
Exactly. If you hear a new word in a podcast or movie, don't just move on. Look it up, understand how it's used, and then practice using it in context. You can even create sentences with the new words, or write them down in a notebook. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more you'll pick up naturally.
And here's a bonus tip. Try reading out loud. It's a great way to practice both your pronunciation and your speaking fluency. Reading aloud will also help you internalize the rhythm and intonation patterns of English.
Finally, the most important thing is to remember that conversation is key. You don't need to have a perfect vocabulary or flawless grammar to speak English confidently. It's all about being willing to speak, practice, and improve over time.
Yes. If you wait until you have a perfect vocabulary, you'll never start speaking. Instead, embrace mistakes, embrace imperfection, and just start talking. Over time, as you practice more, your vocabulary will grow, your grammar will improve, and you'll sound more and more natural.
And remember, confidence is contagious. When you start speaking more confidently, others will respond to you positively, and you'll feel even more motivated to continue. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way. Wow, what a journey we've been on today. We've covered so many strategies to help you speak English naturally without memorizing a dictionary. It's all about using what you already know, focusing on key phrases, and practicing with real conversations.
Exactly, Sarah. And let's not forget the importance of confidence. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. And remember, mistakes are part of the learning process. They're not something to fear, but rather something to embrace. Every time you speak, you're getting closer to fluency.
That's right, Mark. The key takeaway today is that speaking English naturally doesn't require memorizing an entire dictionary. It's about understanding the context, using chunks of language, and getting comfortable speaking in real-life situations. The more you engage with the language, the more fluent you'll become.
And remember, you don't have to sound like a native speaker to be understood. Focus on clear communication and let go of the fear of mistakes. Native speakers don't speak perfectly all the time either. What matters most is getting your point across and connecting with others.
Exactly. So don't wait for perfection. Start speaking today. Whether it's a quick chat with a friend, a conversation in a language exchange group, or even speaking out loud to yourself while practicing, the more you speak, the more natural it will feel.
And hey, don't forget, practice makes progress, not perfection. As long as you keep going, you'll improve every day. So go ahead and use the strategies we discussed. Simplify your language, focus on phrases, listen actively, And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes, exactly. And remember, there's no right way to speak English perfectly. There's only your way, your unique voice. You'll find your rhythm the more you speak, and it will feel more natural each time. Before we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. How do you practice speaking English? What challenges do you face when it comes to speaking naturally? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your experiences.
We hope this episode has given you some new tools to feel more confident in your English. You don't need to be fluent to sound natural. It's all about practicing regularly and finding ways to communicate that feel comfortable for you. And if you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to English Podcast for more tips on speaking English confidently. We release new episodes regularly, so stay tuned for more exciting content.
Also, if you know someone who's struggling to speak English naturally, share this episode with them. Let's help each other become more confident speakers, one conversation at a time.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you feel more empowered to speak English naturally and confidently. Remember, it's not about memorizing a dictionary, it's about using the language to connect with others.
Exactly, Mark. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. You've got this.
See you in the next episode, everyone. Until then, happy speaking.